damn right. We're going to have ICE surround the polls come November. We're not going to sit here and allow you to steal the country again. And you can whine and cry and throw your toys out of the pram all you want, but we will never again allow an election to be stolen.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is what it looks like when a man is freaking the fuck out that he's going to end up facing justice and going back to prison for the long list of crimes that he's committing. I mean, we don't even have to get into the potential kid diddling. How many pictures are there of Jeffrey Epstein and Steve Bannon together? So I had people who sent me this video and they were really freaking out. Couple of things, y'all. Couple of things. Why would you believe anything that comes out of the mouth of Steve Bannon? That motherfucker said that Donald Trump is God's anointed. I mean, y'all, don't do that. Don't let him future fake you. He's a 2-bit con man and he's not part of the federal government. Also, the executive branch, the president, they have no role in elections. They have no role. It's like the founding fathers knew, hey, if we allow the president to use the military or to use federal agents or to interfere in any way with federal elections, that compromises the integrity of our election system. That creates an opportunity for some person like Donald Trump to try and install themselves as a king to subvert the election process. They knew better. They knew better. That's why there is no role for the executive when it comes to elections. Elections are controlled by the states and in specific parameters by Congress. The executive and definitely the president and definitely the military and definitely lawless Gestapo goons have no authority, no power. It is against the law, both state and federal law, for the military or federal agents, including ICE slave catchers, to be positioned at polling places because it's straight up intimidation. And when you hear some fashy propagandist say shit like this because he's scared to death that he's about to go to prison, don't believe him. Be outraged that he would dare suggest that ICE could be at polling. That's un-American, it's illegal, we the people will not stand for it. That's the appropriate response, not like, oh no, ICE is gonna be at polling places. No, the fuck they're not. We're not gonna allow that to happen. That's not going to happen. Again, that would be a clear violation of federal law. The states have control over elections and a little bit Congress. And speaking of Congress, even Republicans are like, no, we're not down with this shit that Donald Trump and Steve Bannon are saying right now. Trump is saying it because he knows he's going to get impeached. He knows that the Epstein files will be exposed and everybody will find out what he's been doing and all his buddies have been doing. Steve Bannon knows he's going to go to prison. That's why they are desperate. This is what extinction burst behavior looks like. This is what it looks like when you back a fucking cat into a corner and it's going to lash out at you, right? It's a cornered animal instinctual response. The only thing that the fascists can do is escalate. And it looks like this crazy shit here is a bridge too far for Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune. For the last several days, Donald Trump has been saying, we got to freeze federal elections. There's no mechanism for that. There's none. That's not a thing that we're going to allow to happen. It's a clear sign of Donald Trump's desperation. We didn't freeze elections in the Civil War, not in World War I, not in World War II, not during the COVID pandemic. We've never suspended elections. And likewise, it has always been illegal for federal agents and the military to be at polling locations. Senator John Thune came out in direct opposition to Donald Trump's demand to nationalize U.S. elections. Right, yesterday, when Trump said in a podcast interview that Republicans should, quote, take over elections in as many as 15 states, John Thune was like, that's batshit. Nope. Actually, what he said as a direct quote is, I'm a big believer in decentralizing and distributing power. Yeah, sure you are, buddy. That's why you've bent the knee to Donald Trump. That's why you've created a supercharged executive. That's why you've tried to turn Donald Trump into a king. But I guess open subversion of elections is a bridge too far for you. Gerrymandering, that's cool. Voter suppression, all the classic techniques Republicans have used for 40 years. That's more like 70 years. That's cool for you, John Thune. But this crazy shit right here is a bridge too far. And that's awesome. That's awesome. It's good that you have a boundary somewhere. Enforce it. We're not going to be freezing elections. We're not going to be having agents We're not going to be having armed Gestapo goons who murder Americans in the streets at polling locations to intimidate voters. Also, just so you know, before you're tempted to think too highly of John Thune, he supports the SAVE Act, which would disenfranchise tens of millions of women voters because they really, really don't want women to vote because women vote overwhelmingly Democratic. And the SAVE Act would disenfranchise women whose passports don't match their birth certificates. I don't know about y'all, but my passport doesn't match my birth certificate because I have a married name. Okay, but getting back to what Steve Bannon said about putting ICE at all the polling locations, clear, obvious intimidation. It's straight up thug shit because he wants to scare you out of voting. Anybody, Republicans, who want to make it as hard as possible for people to vote, who want to scare you out of being able to exercise your right, who want to prevent you from exercising your right to vote, you got to question. You got to question, what are those folks doing? Why are they so afraid of the voter? Why in a democratic society would you want to suppress the vote? It's like you can't win, Republicans, unless you cheat. It's like if the people are able to express their will at the ballot box, you're going to get your asses handed to you. Okay, so Steve Bannon with his voter intimidation plan of his, right? On par for him. Bully shit, on par for him. It's entirely illegal. It's entirely illegal for federal agents and the military to be at polling places. It's against federal and state law. The Brennan Center for Justice breaks that down very, very clearly. But if you're really worried, I encourage you to go to the ACLU's website. They have a whole thing on voting rights, including what to do if you're worried about federal agents at the polls. Every eligible citizen has a right to cast a ballot freely, fairly, and accessibly without fear of deception or intimidation. That's what we should expect in a democratic society. That's what we should expect in the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's not what Republicans want. That's not what they want. So the ACLU has this handy dandy guide. I realize it's reversed in this image, but you know what? Go to the aclu.org and you can find it. There's a whole section on what to do if there are reports of ICE, the National Guard, or other federal agents in your community during early voting or election day. The ACLU suggests making a plan now and consider voting by mail if that is something that you can do within your state. Consider voting as early as possible. If you are eligible to vote during an early voting period, go do it. We know that Republicans are going to try and suppress the vote as much as they can in the midterms because they're desperate to hold on to power. They're engaging in this straight up intimidation, threatening, bullying, extinction burst behavior because they can feel it all slipping through their fingers, right? They can feel their authoritarian dreams crumbling very, very rapidly. So they're going to try a last gasp here and subvert the midterms. Also, if you experience intimidation at a polling place, there's a hotline that you can call. I really encourage you to do so. It's also imperative that you document and report any intimidation, whether by ICE goons or anybody else, to your local election office. Document. Part of what we're up against in the midterms is defending free and fair elections, making sure that we all have access to the ballot box. Anybody who has a right to vote needs to be showing up to vote and needs to be able to access that right. Then we have to make sure that the votes are counted fairly. And then we have to make sure that the duly elected officials are sworn in and able to take their seats. Would-be authoritarians try and fuck with all four of those in order to subvert elections and try to claim power. As Dr. Erica Chenoweth says, elections are an inflection point for a would-be authoritarian. It is really a moment where we can very quickly swing things back toward the rule of law, back toward democracy, by making sure that we all vote, everybody votes, and that we make sure that we are prepared to defend the results of the election and make sure that there is a legal, lawful transfer of power. It's also a moment where if we don't stand up and defend our rights and we don't defend free and fair elections, that they're going to try and grab power. This is absolutely a moment that we all need to be preparing for in earnest. We need to have a plan. Everybody, every grassroots group, and as a nation, we need to have a plan because they're going to fuck with shit. You can see from that video from Steve Bannon how desperate they are. If the rule of law is upheld, if we are able to vote, if we have a free and fair election cycle, there's a lot of fuckers that are going to go to prison and they don't want to face justice. They've evaded it for a long time. So we need to be prepared for their desperation in the coming months.